a couple of housekeeping items and do some introductions, and we'll get started. So again, I'm Allison Susko here at Asset-Map, and I'm thrilled to be joined with Jai and Shane today. So Jai is a Director of Accounts over at Riskalyze, and Shane Hall with Shane Hall Financial is a joint subscriber of both Asset-Map and Riskalyze, who's here to answer some of our burning questions today about how he's having success using both systems, both independently and together. So I'm super, super excited for today's call. Jai, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Jai Corbin. I've been in the financial tech industry since about 2014. Prior to coming to Riskalyze, I worked with selling financial planning software. So really well connected with the industry and what's going on. Came to Riskalyze about 2 years ago, and now I help our sales team work with advisors and consult on best practices when they're implementing different tech stacks. So if you ever reach out to someone on the Riskalyze team, you'll work with one of our reps who will sit down for a consultation and make sure that you guys are set up correctly.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Shane, would you like to do a quick introduction?
Sure. I'm Shane Hall. I've been a financial advisor now for almost 24 years. Longtime user of both platforms. I've been using Riskalyze since early 2017 and Asset-Map since very early in 2018. We use both platforms every day in virtually every client meeting.
That's great. Well, again, we're thrilled to have you today. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us. Because, with all the webinars we host here at Asset-Map, and I'm sure I speak for Riskalyze as well, some of the most impactful parts of these calls are absolutely hearing how systems are used in the field. So we're just thrilled to have you with us today. So a bit of a game plan and some housekeeping. I'm going to record today's call so that if any of your colleagues or friends were not able to make today's session, they can absolutely listen to it back. We're hearing constantly these days that folks are loving to watch back recordings. So we absolutely will record. And we also really like to keep things interactive. My colleague TJ is on the phone today, and he's going to be launching a couple of polls to keep everyone paying attention and interacting with us. So that'll be cool throughout the session. And certainly throw your questions in the chat or the Q&A area. And, especially for Shane later or Jai and myself, we're happy to address some questions. So we're going to do a quick overview of both Asset-Map and Riskalyze respectively. I'm going to show off the integration a bit and how it works. And then we're going to do some Q&A with Shane. So that's the game plan for today. And with that, I think I will get started. Let's see if this works here. So over at Asset-Map, we really believe that, there's some challenges out there in the industry that we feel like we're really addressing and helping both clients, prospects, and advisors solve. Starting with client engagement, our CEO and founder, Adam Holtz, we founded Asset-Map, over a decade ago now. And really, he was finding that his clients weren't always engaged in the process of meetings, financial planning, and those types of topics. A lot of times, as we all know, these situations, these life situations, income, retirement can really be a daunting thought for clients and prospects. And really, he thought, what if I make this process a little bit more visual? Really lead with engagement and offer up the best advice possible by keeping the clients really engaged in the process of financial planning, and hence created Asset-Map. And again, we're really working on keeping things engaging for them and really easy to understand and stay involved. There's nothing more important than getting great data, we believe, and client profiling should not be super overwhelming for either party. And we really feel like we're helping solve that data collection process. So making things consumable, finding out the best possible information about your clients to better serve them and better, give better advice throughout the process. And once we have all of that great data loaded up into Asset-Map, how can we identify opportunities both for the advisor and the firm, and also make sure we're doing the best due diligence possible for your clients and prospects? So, really just solving that problem of utilizing the data to the best of our ability for both the clients and the advisors themselves. So we really feel like we're tackling some of those professional challenges that are out there. So Asset-Map, let's talk about kind of, what everyone understands is the visual platform of what we are. There's nothing more important, in our opinion, than what matters at a household level. Every single family looks different. As you can see, we have lots of folks loaded up here at the top of the screen. We have client and spouse. You can see a couple children loaded up, grandma, business partners and business interests, special needs trusts. All of these things can be cataloged in Asset-Map in order to facilitate more meaningful conversations around those topics. So we'll just pop up kind of a good setup of what an example might look like. We've got Tim and Christine. As you can see over on the left-hand side, we will list out any applicable incomes, both current and in the future. You can see that Tim is Director of Operations over at Comcast. Looks like they have Social Security accounted for in the future, and in any kind of investments that are loaded up for Tim, whether they be pulling in through integrations such as Riskalyze, or if we've entered them in manually as well. Of course, we'll do the same thing over on the spouse side. So you can see income and any applicable information about Christine in this case. Again, individually held investments over on her side, and joint down at the bottom. So the Asset-Map is set up to, again, facilitate conversations around the different investments, the ownership, and who owns what. So again, joint investments and liabilities down at the bottom, and then insurance policies up at the top, protecting everything that you have here on the map. Not only are the client and spouse important in these conversations, but we can click up at the top into the different family members, and again, have those different conversations based on which family member we're currently having a discussion about. So we've got Maureen and Josh up on the scene. We've got some education funding happening, potentially an expense, and 529s that are loaded up for each one of the children. Pop up a different view. Again, I clicked on potentially John Smith and SMB printers, and you can then have that, again, relevant conversation about John Smith, the business partner, what's the future plan for the printing company, and potentially insurance. Whatever conversation the advisor would like to have with that particular client can be dictated by those folks that are listed up at the top, really making it meaningful and able to stay on track based on topic. Another example, we've got grandma. She's very invested in the family, and it looks like she's set up a special needs trust for Joshua. So you can see how these different conversations can take place based on topic and based on that specific family's makeup, which is something I really love about our system. Okay. And wouldn't it be great to, we have a new feature that I would love to highlight today as well, that we just rolled it out about 6 weeks ago. And we really think it's just wonderful to be able to take the data that is here in the system and mine it for opportunities. Look for some different issues that might pop up with a particular client. All of those things that we really wish, the data could work for us behind the scenes. We have a great algorithm built into Asset-Map now where you can say, based on this information that we have here in the system, you might potentially want to talk to the clients about a loss of life scenario, or maybe there could be a legal liability issue based on the information that we have here in the system. Also, it's saying, it looks like we're okay for long-term care. Potentially they have a policy that is ready to go and would take care of any needs that would pop up on that topic. So it's really just taking items that are loaded into the system and, again, running some algorithms behind the scenes to let you know that there could be a potential hiccup to your game plan, and it might be worthwhile having these conversations with the client here in the Asset-Map report. And additionally, certainly we have some great financial planning built in behind the scenes, but it's meant to be an "Are you okay?" kind of checkup to make sure we're making great decisions. We're on track for things like retirement funding, life insurance planning, items like that. We're not getting too deep into the weeds. We're really just making sure that, again, our clients are making good decisions and they're on track for important life events that they have listed out potentially for themselves and their client. So how funded are we? We're taking this information from the Asset-Map and we're letting them know, you're about 77% there towards your goal, based on the information we have for you here in the asset map. So quick, easy planning meant to take, 15 or 20 minutes to be able to work with that client and let them know maybe some decisions they should make to get closer to their goal. We also have, in addition to what we call the target maps, which we're showing you now, I should have told you the name. So these are our target maps here in the system. And in addition, if you want to get a little more detailed, we certainly had lots of requests over the last couple of years to get a nice cash flow report built into the target maps as well. So if you do like to check out the numbers, if you have those engineer type clients who would like to get a little more detailed, we can certainly pop up cash flow and let them know kind of what the spend down is for those different goals they have in the future. All right. So you might be thinking to yourself, and this is probably a great segue because I know that Shane specifically starts out in Asset-Map with new clients and prospects, and then he goes from there and jumps into Riskalyze. So you might be thinking, how am I going to get information here into this Asset-Map? And there's really 3 different ways to do it. Traditionally, and our most popular way over the years has honestly been client and advisor interaction. So popping up, the asset map either on a screen like we are today on Zoom, or even if we're just having a in-person meeting. We all remember in-person meetings, right? That is certainly the way that we've gotten, most of the data into Asset-Map over the years is really through an interview process, getting to know our clients firsthand. Second way we have to get some data loaded into Asset-Map is a direct client fact finder called Discovery. So being able to send out a link to your clients, find out a little bit more about them leading up to a meeting, really kind of knocking down those barriers of maybe an uncomfortable first meeting, getting a notification leading up to that said meeting about client information that they've entered themselves. Super simple client fact finder that they can participate in. And last but not least, but certainly referenceable for today, is integrations. We have a nice list of folks that we work with. Again, today we're going to be focusing a lot on Riskalyze, and they're one of our longtime partners, as I mentioned, and a great way to get some data loaded into Asset-Map is through the Riskalyze platform, which we'll show off here in a few minutes. But that being said, let's pop up our first poll, TJ, unless you've already popped up our poll. How are you folks gathering data today? So it's our Asset-Map question. How are you gathering your data from your clients? Oh man, we already have lots of results coming in. So we have a few options: manual upload, questionnaire/fact finder, system integrations, or I'm currently looking for a more effective, efficient method to get our data into different systems that we use. Wow, overwhelmingly, and we still have some coming in. We've got manual upload at about 17%, fact finding and questionnaires with your clients at 65%, still coming in, systems integrations at 13%, and looking for a new method at 5%. So we always get a load of different answers here, but certainly overwhelmingly, it looks like most of our folks on the call here today are using fact finding and questionnaires to get the most up-to-date information from their clients. So thank you, TJ, for launching the poll. I am going to stop sharing. I am going to throw it over to Jai to do an overview of Riskalyze for us before we show off the integration and chat with Shane.
Perfect. Let me try sharing my screen here. Is this coming through all right?
Sounds good.
Great.
Looks great.
So one of the questions that advisors always ask when they're taking a look at Riskalyze is, what do you do? A lot of people know Riskalyze as a risk tolerance questionnaire. That's where we started out in 2013, but really where we've grown since then is to become a client education and presentation tool. And by being able to get some of the core metrics, advisors can really start using us on a day-to-day basis. And most advisors are coming to us when they're looking to, win new business or have more concise reporting, or if they really want to have a way to document what's going on with their clients and make sure that they're documenting best interest. So how do we do that? I'm going to pull up a quick keynote here, if this is going to work for me. All right. Looks like, there we go. So Riskalyze at its simplest is going to be a way to quantify what clients want versus what they have. So in this Doug Littman example that we have here, we call it what we call our core four. On the top left, we have the risk number of 42. That's Doug's risk number. That's what he wants to have as a client. So his risk tolerance. Where advisors are going to use Riskalyze then is to identify any mismatches between what they have and what they want. And again, going back to the integration kind of landscape, we partner with all the major institutions out there to pull in either accounts that you manage or that might be managed by another advisor. So we have a really, really simplified way to be able to identify the difference between what they want and what they have. And similar to some of the tools in Asset-Map, we can help clients understand where are they headed. And if there's any mismatch between any of these three advisors, that's where Riskalyze is going to help advisors showcase their expertise by being able to show a proposed plan. And this could be anything: stocks, bonds, mutual funds, SMAs. You might be using structured notes or annuities. Riskalyze has the ability to generate a risk assessment, understand what this is going to do for potential annual return, for your asset allocation, and then really simplify that into some simple reports. One of our most commonly used reports is going to be this comparison report, right? We know that there's a lot going on in a financial plan. So how can we simplify that down into a 1 or 2 page report that's going to identify, here's what you have today, your risk number 67. That means that you're taking on, or you could lose as much as 15% of your portfolio. And how can we get you to a level that you're comfortable with, right? We don't necessarily have to sacrifice upside potential, but if we make these changes to your portfolio or these accounts, we can reduce the level of risk that's in your portfolio. We don't have to sacrifice the upside potential. And if we do that, we're going to be able to get you the potential annual return that's going to make your financial plan work. And Riskalyze can take all the data that you might see in something like Morningstar Workstation and simplify that down to a nice 2-page report that's going to be able to show them the weaknesses of what they have and what they could be doing if they make those adjustments and move over to you, to working with you as an advisor. There's a lot that we can do. Our product is very sophisticated. We can help you search for investments. We can help you build your models and track models, but all of this is going to be stored on the client's file so that not only when we make our presentation today, but we'll have the ability to create IPS reports where clients can actually sign off on the paperwork, make sure that it's in line with what they need, put it in their client file, and then we're going to have that stored for you moving forward. Their risk numbers, their assessments, their reports are all going to be stored in Riskalyze. And then we're also going to help you automate check-ins in the future, right? So instead of having to always reach out to clients and figure out how they feel about the market or how they feel about their financial future, there's built-in tools like the client check-ins that are going to automatically send out notifications to your clients to get a pulse of where they're at. And if anyone comes back and says, you know, I'm feeling a little bit anxious right now, that's going to give you, as the advisor, alerts to know, hey, it might be time to refresh the risk tolerance questionnaire. You might want to get them back in and do some meetings. And of course, data entry is a big thing for us. We don't want you guys to be spending a lot of time in Riskalyze. We say kind of an efficient strategy is usually about 5 to 12 minutes in our product, but that's in big part because we partner with so many people out in the industry. So whether it's your custodian, whether it's Asset-Map, whether it's going to be where your portfolio management system, we're going to be able to pull in all the accounts and holdings that they currently have and score that for you instantaneously, and create some really good reports. So that's kind of the quick high-level overview of Riskalyze. But if I had to distill it, I'd say that really we focus on being a client education tool and a client presentation tool, but we have all the tools that you're going to need to cover yourself from a compliance aspect, because we really focus on helping you prove best interest with understanding where the client wants to be, what do they have, are they headed in the right direction, and how can we fix it for them if they're not.
That's great. And thank you so much, Jai. And we do have some poll results for you guys as well. So let's talk about that. TJ, I don't know if you are able to share the results, but I think the question here is, how are you primarily using Riskalyze to engage your clients and prospects? And overwhelmingly, it looks like risk assessments helping quantify a client's risk tolerance with some kind of next up, all of the above, so utilizing all of your features, which is always nice. including check-ins, helping take the pulse of clients on a regular basis, investment policy statements for review, and certainly there are some folks who are looking to learn more about Riskalyze. So we'll have a call to action here at the end of the webinar to make sure you can connect with either team. So very cool, and love to see those poll results.
Now, Allison, it looks like there's one question that was posed, and I'll cover that before we jump on. But the question says, how does Whiskelize determine the risk score? Is it by stock to bond ratio, or is it by characteristics and statistics of the actual account individual holdings? And the answer is, it's the actual individual securities that make up an account or a portfolio. We team up with partners like Morningstar and a lot of other data providers so that when we're looking at investments, whether it's stocks, bonds, mutual funds, SMAs, we're looking at the true performance of those individual investments. So you're not going to get a standard score for all stocks or all bonds. It's going to be based on the true performance of that individual investment.
That's great. Thank you so much for clarifying that. That's a wonderful question. And to that point, please feel free to throw some questions in here. I'm going to show off our integration between Asset-Map and Riskalyze here in a second. So I'll reshare my screen here. And then, of course, afterwards, we're going to chat with Shane. So feel free to type some questions in, whether they be about either platform, how they work together, or, of course, for Shane. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you how the Asset-Map Riskalyze integration works. All right. So the integration is authenticated from the Asset-Map side. So we all know how single sign-on works, right? So if I pop up Asset-Map, and you can see I'm already here within a client household. We'll get more to the details of that here in a second. We do have an integrations page here at Asset-Map. Something to keep in mind, you might not see a couple maybe that you're using if you're an Asset-Map subscriber. Some of them are also authenticated from our other partners. So in this case, Riskalyze is launched right here from the Asset-Map platform. I clicked on my photo up here. Of course, this is all white labeled. If you were using Asset-Map, it would be your photo or your logo. And you can see that the Riskalyze integration is active. That means I've come in here previously, typed in my Riskalyze username and password, and it's ready to go now to pull in for any new client, prospect, or existing client that I would like some Riskalyze data to flow into. So no need to do that now. We certainly won't deactivate it, but I am set up to go, and with any client I want to get going here with Riskalyze. So that's always a good sign. I'm going to go ahead to our household index. That is where our kind of client list lives. And I'm going to pop up the Andersons. So let's talk about use case for a second here. And I know this is similar in theory to what Shane does. Getting started in Asset-Map, gathering some initial data is pretty common. Again, you could send out that direct to client fact finder. You could ask for some statements ahead of time. You could do a quick phone interview. However you're gathering data, fine with us, whether it be with us or another platform, of course, because there's lots of ways to do it. But it looks like here I have some basic information about Kevin and Allie here in my Asset-Map platform. I found out where they work. I know they have a couple of checking and savings accounts. They let me know about their health, their mortgage, but there's obviously a lot missing, potentially some investments that I want to find out more about for Allie and Kevin. And I happen to know that these items are loaded up already in my Riskalyze account. So of course, one of our least favorite things to do in the industry is data entry that's the same across multiple platforms. Nobody wants to do that. It's time consuming and doesn't use our time in the best way possible. So we're going to go ahead and enable the Riskalyze integration for Kevin and Allie Anderson. And it's super, super simple. Let me go back. I am going to my integrations area on my client page, and I'm just going to go ahead and click Enable Riskalyze. And it's going to pop me over to this page here. You can see some other integration partners loaded up. And I'm able to really simply search for Anderson. And it's going to pop up two things for me. One, who do we want to import this information to? I'm going to start out with Kevin, and I'm going to click Import. And we're going to hope then it says View, because that means that it connected it over. Excellent. And I'm also going to load up Allie Anderson. So we've got the client and spouse. Let's get both of their information from Riskalyze loaded into Asset-Map. You can see it's a pretty quick process. You can see over on the right-hand side, immediately, we already have the associated risk scores for both Kevin and Allie. And we also have the ability to unlink if we had to for some reason. So if we ever wanted to shut this integration off for this particular client, we could absolutely do so. And if I go back to the Anderson page, you can see now we have the Riskalyze integration and synced a few seconds ago. Now, if I were to log in a week or so, it's going to say synced last week. This is not an aggregation feature where it's just constantly updating. I happen to think that that's a preference. I think it's great because I'm able to pop up this asset map report and say, hey, you know what would be really great? If I could see where this client and spouse were 6 months ago, the last time we met, and I'm able to pop up the asset map, I'm able to see those risk scores from 6 months ago. I'm able to see the associated account values that are loaded in from Riskalyze. And then within 2 seconds, I can hit this little refresh button and get the new values. So it's that simple to get a quick update from Riskalyze to send over into Asset Map. And now if I pop up the Anderson's Asset Map report, we've got a whole host of great things happening here. We have the information that we had when we looked originally. We also have accounts that have loaded up for both Kevin and Allie with the associated risk scores and also the target and current risk score for both of the client and spouse. So you're able to essentially have the entire Riskalyze conversation right here in the asset map if you want to. So that's so cool what Jay said earlier. He mentioned, you know, you're not necessarily supposed to be spending a ton of time in Riskalyze with your clients, but you're able to benefit from the wonderful information that has loaded up in here for you to talk about with them and reference both tools really simply and easily right here in the asset map. So I'll pop one open. You'll be able to see we now have a Riskalyze tab here. If I click on the account, we've got the value loaded up, which is locked down because we know it's coming right from Riskalyze. And if I pop up the Riskalyze tab up at the top, I can see the risk score for this account, and I can pop right back into Riskalyze if I need to make some adjustments, work on the risk tolerance with my clients, whatever I need to do. So super, super simple. This thing comes together in just a matter of seconds, but it really is extremely valuable to be able to talk about overall risk score, target risk score, risk scores for each individual investment, and of course, get those values to load up right here on the asset map. We also have a tab here. If I click on Kevin, we have a tab for Riskalyze for the client. Again, it's going to show you the target and current portfolio. And of course, we can just click here, view Riskalyze client, pops me right over into the Riskalyze platform where I can do any necessary work right here in Riskalyze that I have to do. So it's a very, very valuable, straightforward, but simple integration that we just absolutely love here at Asset Map. I could talk about it for hours, but certainly we don't want to hear me for hours. We want to get Shane here involved in this conversation. Jai, do you have anything to add when it comes to the integration or kind of what I showed here, and what are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think the easiest part is the integrations make everything easy, and Asset Map, you know, puts everything on one page. So if clients can really understand where is the risk coming from, and are we okay with that? And if not, and maybe they're overly risky in a certain area, what can we do to fix it? And how can we just make it very easy to digest? So a lot of advisors and a lot of clients really like this specific screen, especially when it comes to talking about those risk numbers.
I agree. It just makes it super consumable. That's what we're certainly after, and something that we feel a real synergy with Riskalyze is we're both taking relatively complex topics that we have with clients, certainly risk score, certainly the idea around advice and financial planning, and trying to make it more consumable, more interactive, and really keeping the clients from kind of glazing over and thinking this is just too much for me to handle. Both systems are really tackling that really well, and you know, that's certainly another reason why we love working with Riskalyze. That being said, right at 2:30, let's get Mr. Hall involved and do some Q&A with Shane. Again, if you folks have any questions at all for either Jai or myself, or of course Shane, feel free to type them in the Q&A or chat area. But Shane, what do you think about the demo and any kind of initial thoughts before we do some Q&A?
Oh, the demo's great.
Good. I'm glad. So you mentioned you've been using Asset Map and Riskalyze for, gosh, about 4 years plus, both systems. How do you feel? Let's start out with an Asset Map question. How do you feel Asset-Map specifically has improved your client and prospect meetings, and especially around potentially transitioning to remote suddenly over the last couple of years?
Sure. First of all, I would just like to thank you and Jai for having me on today, and I hope I'm able to provide some valuable information for your audience. If I can't teach them what to do, maybe they'll learn what not to do today. So thank you. So as far as improving our client experience in our meetings, in our firm, we coach a lot towards focusing on what matters to our clients and also what they can control. So we teach a lot about not worrying about what we cannot control, like market volatility, but worrying about the things that we can. And the asset map, with this simple visual on a single screen or on a single sheet of paper, really helps us focus on what we or the client can control. So by having all of your income, current and future income streams in there, all of your investments, your retirement accounts, TODs, all of your debts, all of your risk management tools, it really just helps you focus on everything that's controllable within your financial plan.
Yeah, we certainly agree there. Jai, do you have the doc up with your questions for Shane, or would you like me to relay for you?
If you want to just go through them, that would work. That would work great.
Absolutely, happy to do that. Shane, thank you for that answer. We certainly agree. Taking away kind of the complication of things that again are not in clients' control or not in our control, and simplifying things are certainly things I think we're both after at these two companies. Shane, how has the Riskalyze Asset-Map integration helped you communicate more effectively and improved the process of talking about these two topics with your clients and prospects?
Again, I think in part it goes back to that control aspect and just being able to illustrate the risk numbers in another format to create a completely different visual than they might get from the Riskalyze software. So for us, it just drives more conversation and making sure that all of their accounts are in alignment with their own tolerance for volatility and to meet their goals and objectives. So for us, it's just about driving more conversation and being able to illustrate it in a different format to maybe help them comprehend it better.
Yeah, I think that's great. You mentioned on our prep call a couple of days ago that you're really utilizing the retirement map in Riskalyze. So the retirement map helping to, again, set expectations for clients when you're presenting a proposed portfolio. Can you talk a little bit more about how you're using the retirement map and specifically how that's aiding in your process?
Yeah, I'll kind of throw a good sales pitch out for Jai. With Riskalyze, I think this is where we make our money. Proposals are very valuable in comparing through the overview. Comparing that to current portfolios, I think is where there's enormous opportunity to transfer monies from other firms to our own. And that it's pretty analytical. There's a lot of data there. Obviously, the client can see numerous factors there, like variance in rates of return or dividend rates, expense ratios, et cetera. So that in and of itself is a pretty easy sale. But even at that point, a lot of it is still just data. And so once you transfer that over to the retirement map, and you can see how that change in investment actually affects the client, particularly for retirement income planning, that's where they can kind of have that aha moment to say, that's why it's important to increase my dividend yield and reduce my expense ratios, because it may have a $250,000 effect on them throughout their lifetime. So that's where we utilize the retirement map, is to help make that comparison between current and proposed and what the actual net effect and the impact to that client would be.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's excellent. And we certainly agree. We hate to bring up, the events of the last couple of years, but it certainly impacted all of our lives, whether it be, transitioning to working from home or specifically meeting with clients in a remote fashion. Prior to the pandemic, you might have been meeting more in person. With recent market disruptions caused by the pandemic, or certainly, we're all talking about inflation these days, has Asset-Map and Riskalyze impacted client conversations? You really just to help them stay the course. And, you've mentioned keeping out what you can't control. Specifically, how have these two platforms helped you put your client's mind at ease?
We use Riskalyze extensively in that conversation. Right or wrong, we never talk about performance of accounts in our firm. Our clients never ask about performance. We use Riskalyze more to keep them focused on the long term and setting those expectations through the analytics of the software program. So for us in this time of volatility right now, it's really that conversation of what's going on today or even tomorrow is not important. It's really setting that expectation of what the next 10 to 30 years is going to look like in regards to the previous 10 or 30 years, and just helping them focus on the big picture. And then where that integrates back into the asset map is, I don't believe there should ever be a conversation about how much have I earned or lost in the last 6 months. I think the conversation should always be, regardless of what's happened in the market or my portfolios, are we still okay to accomplish our goals? And so bringing all of that back over to the asset map really helps them focus and say, who cares if we've had a 5% loss in your portfolio value today? You're still able to accomplish every goal that you laid out. So that helps, again, take away that focus from the short term and help them focus more long term.
And Shane, that actually brings up one of the questions in the chat for you is, what is your workflow or your order of operations prior to doing one of those review meetings for a client? Like what do you use to prep, or what, I guess, tools do you bring into that meeting?
This is it. These two tools. I have a paraplanner that enters my data. They prep all my Riskalyze. They do the integrations over to the map. And then for me, it's just about having those conversations with our clients. One feature that Allison did not illustrate today that I think comes up in particular with virtual meetings is the use of the marker. So I use that marker tool in every virtual meeting because Adam taught us well, right? We're supposed to write and draw on these maps. So we use that marker feature a lot to illustrate what we're talking about and help clients understand in a very simplistic manner what these conversations are. But honestly, my review meetings with clients have come down to just these two software programs, and that's it.
I'm drawing a big X on here because I have no artistic skills, but this is the marker that that Shane is referring to. We built this in a couple of years ago. To Shane's point, Adam, our CEO and founder, was very vocal about having markers built in because it's really funny for Asset-Map. People love to draw right on it. So as much as we think printing is funny these days, at a conference, I hold up a paper Asset-Map. Sometimes I run right out and I draw right on it. And the ability to do it right in the platform and take a note. I'm not going to make you watch me try to type note, but you're able to truly just draw right on here, get the clients involved, and up on a big whiteboard. I mean, it's super powerful. So the marker tools are a great addition to the Asset-Map to kind of illustrate right on it, to your point. What else do we have for Shane? Let's see. We have tackled that question. We're checking for audience questions. See, we talked about this a bit. You mentioned your aha moment, but have you had any specific client reactions? Are your clients really enjoying the process? I know it's certainly simplified things for you, but have you had any kind of comments or situations where clients have made any comments about the use of Riskalyze or Asset-Map that are interesting to note?
Nothing in particular comes to mind other than my clients do love the simplicity of seeing everything on one screen or on one sheet of paper. I believe in keep it simple, stupid. I think it's really easy for us as advisors to overwhelm clients, and you could overwhelm a client in Riskalyze, but you'd have to try to do that, right? Riskalyze can be a very simple visual tool for clients, and obviously the asset map is very simple. So I think even on the flip side, Allison, if we're not getting just a ton of ahas, we're certainly not getting any negative conversation from either experience.
Well, that's certainly a good thing. I'm looking through the chat here. I think this one's interesting to shoot over to Jai as well. If an account isn't linking over properly to Riskalyze, can you add a risk score number to a manually entered account? I think that's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to that myself.
The answer is yes. So there are many ways to score a portfolio. It could be manually entering holdings. It could be a file upload. Let's say maybe you're working with an SMA was another question, and you can export all of the individual holdings. That can also be uploaded into Riskalyze if you don't necessarily have a direct integration. Integrations are obviously great because they're going to be connected nightly and pull in on a daily basis. But there are plenty of ways to get data into Riskalyze if you don't have a direct integration.
Perfect. That's great. Can Riskalyze score a variable annuity along with a typical portfolio?
Yes, it can. Stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, SMAs, UMAs, annuity, and insurance products can all be scored within Riskalyze.
Fabulous. Shane, a question for you from David here. Do you approach a client meeting, a client interaction the same for a $5 million client and a $500,000 client? And how would you kind of tackle that question?
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of $5 million clients. That would be really nice. Actually, I would. I don't think there'd be any difference at all. The sophistication of the map could be greater, right, Allison? Kind of like you illustrated, entities versus just individuals. So yeah, we have clients with S corps, particular trusts, C corps, LLCs, rental properties, things like that. And we integrate all of them into the map. So yes, you could easily take a $5 million client and make it just this simple, because even though they're a higher net worth, simplicity is still going to be very appealing to them.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Any more questions? Feel free to type them in. I have a couple here that are kind of more technology related that I'm going to reach out to separately because I might not even know the answer. Let's see. We've got a question for, oh, well, I'll take this one. It's a very common question, as you can imagine, that we get. How does Asset-Map differ from an eMoney or a Money Guide Pro, and do people use them in conjunction with each other? I can't tell you how many times a week that I have this conversation. Funny enough, I was a longtime eMoney advisor employee as well. So Jai and I have both been in the space for a bit here and different technology companies. But you know, I'll use eMoney as the example since I know it well. We have, gosh, hundreds, if not thousands, of crossover subscribers between Asset-Map and eMoney. We think we're a wonderful complement to, in my opinion, the best financial planning technology software out there to really go deep with a client and get to those details that you need to get to. We find that we are a nice complement. What we hear a lot of times is, you know, I have some clients that just don't demand necessarily the complexity that eMoney offers. Wouldn't it be great if I could do some very quick, you know, straight line basic needs analysis planning / improve my client meetings with these visuals? And at that point, we make a very nice complement, I think. You know, it's something that we hear quite a bit. Folks are having some great success with it. And you can always pop up the Asset-Map website, which is just asset-map.com, and read about some case studies on how people are doing that exact same thing. So we do not see ourselves necessarily as a competitor to those wonderful platforms. They're partners of ours. And we do seem to work very well in conjunction with them. So thank you for that question. Let's see what else we got here. Did we forget anything? Jai, do you have anything else you'd like to tackle with Shane?
No, I think that really covers the majority of how we see advisors using Riskalyze. And I think Shane really hit it on the head. It's all about simplicity. And with these two tools, you can really take some complex conversations, put it on 2 pages, and help people make decisions. And that's where we've seen most people take advantage of our tools, is by simplifying the conversations. Clients can make decisions, and ultimately that ends up helping a lot of our advisors win more business, whether it's completely new or it's held away. So I think Shane really hit it on the head today.
Our good friend Randy, who is on the call today, also a longtime subscriber of both platforms, brought up a good point. Don't forget about, and I mentioned it briefly in the beginning, but the ability to look at different entities within the asset map. So that's, again, that's super powerful. If I want to talk about Allie Franklin and her special needs trust, I'm able to really simply come up here into the asset map and tweak what my view is. Do I just want to talk about Ben? Do I want to specifically talk about someone's business, or in this case, the special needs trust? Because you're able to, again, kind of quickly go back and forth between the visuals of the family members and the applicable folks within that kind of family unit. It's just a great way to facilitate conversation. So Randy, thank you so much for reminding me to show that, because we certainly agree. It does look like we have another question for Shane. Shane, how do you headline Riskalyze assessment to make it smooth for the client so they don't get stuck on each question or problem deciding on which option they want to select?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Allison?
No problem. So when you're doing the Riskalyze risk assessments with clients, how do you ensure that that questionnaire goes smoothly with them and they don't get stuck on a question?
Good question. For us, I walk through every client I walk them through the risk assessment. I don't send it out to them and let them do it on their own. I kind of hold their hand, whether that's in person or virtual. We do all of that with them. Very cool.
Jai, do you see any kind of feedback on that as well? How clients are getting through the questionnaire, and if it's user friendly on their own, or if they're doing it a lot with advisors?
There are actually 3 different versions of the risk tolerance questionnaire within Riskalyze currently. There is what we call our next gen. They have our detailed, and we have our simple. So what we often recommend for advisors is, if someone's maybe new to the risk assessment for the first time, they might be a first planner, using the next gen or the simple questionnaire might be the route to go, because it simplifies the number of questions they have to go through. It might only be 2 to 5 questions that they're answering. So again, if you're guiding them through the conversation, they don't have to necessarily think so many times. They can kind of take a gut reaction. If someone really wants to hone in, or they're maybe a little bit more analytical, or they've done it before, then we typically might recommend something like the detailed questionnaire, because it's going to have a few more questions, but it'll really hone in for the clients that are analytical and want to get that dialed in super close. So I would just say it depends on how you want to operate, but being with the client, walking them through that, and then getting them the appropriate questionnaire for where they're at in their investment journey is probably the best way to simplify that.
I love that. Thank you so much for the detail on the different options. That's extremely helpful. I'm learning something new all the time on this webinar. It's great. So a question always comes up about some additional integrations, and we do have a couple more minutes here, but best way to automate data entry. So we have a gentleman here who's using Riskalyze, Right Capital, and Asset-Map. To your point, Benjamin, we do not at Asset-Map have a Right Capital integration. I do not know if Riskalyze does, so I'll let Jai tackle that one.
We do. I was actually just going to look exactly what Right Capital pulls. I know they're not quite as strong as some of our other integrations, unfortunately. where I don't believe that we really have the ability to push data over to their system. So I'll have to follow back up with that, but I can definitely make sure, Benjamin, that I reach back out with a specific use case for you.
Jai, can I add to that?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm a RightCap user as well. So the main thing that we get from the Riskalyze integration is pushing our portfolios with the risk numbers out of Riskalyze and into RightCap. So anytime you're running a retirement analysis, you can use those assumptions of that portfolio in all of your analyses.
That's helpful.
So I
Thank
hope
you.
that helps.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So another question from Ryan. I know for Asset-Map, and then I'll pass it over to Jai. And also, I know we just have a couple of minutes left here. We will get all these questions and answers in a report afterwards. So if we follow back up with you post the webinar, that could potentially be an option as well if we don't get to your question here today. So for Asset-Map future scenarios, I did cover very briefly in the beginning that we have what we call our target maps, which really allow you to look into a multitude of different scenarios when it comes to goal planning, trying to make sure you're okay for things like life insurance and retirement. Again, really just seeing if you're on track. So certainly outlining future potential scenarios in Asset-Map is possible. And we hold weekly trainings on our target maps, which are just phenomenal to really get some detail on how you can do that. As far as potential scenarios in Riskalyze, Jai, do you want to take that question?
Yes. So the question says, does Riskalyze or Asset-Map outline future potential scenarios 1, 5, and 10 years for potential outcomes based on various portfolio structures? And what is the potential range of outcomes of a $1 million Roth account if you invested in portfolio A versus portfolio B? The answer is yes for Riskalyze. We have what's called retirement maps, which is a great feature to be able to do this. So as you're building in the account, you would place the dollar amount that you have, and then Riskalyze will be able to show you where you'd be at in 1, 5, or 10 years, or 20 years, depending on different portfolios that you have. In addition to that, Riskalyze also will take a look at your potential return, low side and high side, to help you with some of those things as well, or maybe look back at historical performance as well. So there's a few different ways that you could potentially do that, but retirement maps would probably be the #1 way to do that inside of Riskalyze.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Oh, a comment from Michael Miller, loves retirement maps. That's great. We always love a shout out. I think we've gotten to most of these questions and we're coming up on, kind of closing out here. Let me just pop up one more slide. And again, if there's any additional questions, of course, we'd be happy to tackle them afterwards and send you all an email. And of course, it's going to start where I would like it to. Perfect. So if you would like to contact anyone at either the Riskalyze or Asset-Map teams, we are always happy to go deeper and talk more about the target maps or the signals that I showed you, kind of uncovering opportunities using the data that you've put in the system. And I know the Riskalyze team is certainly happy to chat with you as well. So you have two different options here. You can certainly jump over to asset-map.com/pricing, or you can use the good old-fashioned QR code to contact us there as well. And certainly, same thing goes with Riskalyze at hello@riskalyze.com. You can connect with someone there if you have either questions or if you would like to schedule a demo with either team. I know our sales folks and CS folks would be happy to chat with you. Jai or Shane, do you have any other closing remarks you would like to say before we close out?
One of the questions that did come up earlier was, if I'm going to get a demo of Riskalyze, will I be able to see a live sample case? And the answer is yes. When you're working with one of our consultations, we're going to be live in product for you, and we'll be able to score, current portfolio versus proposed, or look at your models, or anything that you'd want to view live in Riskalyze. We'll be able to prepare for you. So don't feel like you're just going to get a PowerPoint version. We'll be live in product to make sure that you get all your questions answered.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And Shane, thank you so much for joining us today. This was extremely valuable. I know for, I think I speak for Jai and myself and certainly the audience. Any parting words from you?
Sure, and you're welcome, and thanks for having me today. I would just say, as great of tools as both of these platforms are from a data and analytics perspective and driving conversations with clients, I just remind everybody that these are two of the best sales tools that you will ever find in the industry. And they're a great complement for each other, and I hope everybody gets a chance to try them.
Thank you so much, Shane. It's always a pleasure having you on our webinars, and we truly appreciate it. And Jai, thank you so much for joining me today. And anybody who has any questions, again, you know where to find us, and we are more than happy to chat with you. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.